There is a forgotten chapter in the American story where the entire economic system did seem unjust. It appeared to be on the verge of total collapse. The nation was creating fortunes at a dizzying pace, yet almost all of it was being captured by a microscopic few. For the vast majority, existence was defined by perilous labor, unpredictable financial disasters, and a government that had been purchased. This wasn't merely a gap between rich and poor. It was a profound structural failure, a pressure cooker with no release valve, and the notion that anyone could challenge this arrangement seemed like a fantasy. The titans of industry were untouchable. The political will was non-existent. But this is precisely when the nation would embark on its most daring project, to save capitalism from itself. To grasp the scale of the challenge, you have to journey back to the late 19th century, a period of breathtaking industrial expansion and a near-total absence of regulation. Railroads connected the nation, steel forged its new skyline, and titans like Rockefeller and Morgan didn't just run companies. They commanded private empires with more influence than many states. They didn't compete, they conquered. Meanwhile, the reality for the average worker was brutal. 14-hour days were the norm. Death or injury in a factory was a routine cost of business. Children labored, not for pocket money, but for family survival. There was no safety net, no minimum wage, no voice. The economy grew by punishing the people who built it, and the political arena offered no escape. The Senate was a club for the wealthy, the courts were friendly to corporate interests, and the press was often in the pocket of the trusts. Then, the system would shudder. The Panic of 1873 plunged the economy into a 6-year depression. The collapse of 1893 wiped out thousands of businesses. The Great Strike of 1877 saw blood spilled in the streets. These weren't mere recessions. They were symptoms of a sickness at the very core of the system. But this is where the narrative shifts from despair to defiance. The country did not simply accept its fate. A coalition of journalists, activists, union leaders, and a handful of brave politicians began to push back. The first symbolic blow was the Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890. On its face, it outlawed monopolies. In practice, it was initially weak, but its true power was as a declaration. The economy was a public trust, not a private kingdom. Then came the writers, the muckrakers. Ida Tarbell's investigation peeled back the layers of Standard Oil, revealing its cutthroat nature. Upton Sinclair's The Jungle exposed the horrifying conditions in Chicago's meatpacking plants, turning the public's stomach and its opinion. Change wasn't driven by theory. It was fueled by raw, national disgust. The movement found its champion in Theodore Roosevelt. He was a force of nature who understood that presidential power wasn't just about enforcing laws, but about winning the public argument. When he took on the Northern Securities Railroad Trust, it was more than a legal case. It was a signal that the age of the untouchable corporation was over. He believed in curbing business, not when it was big, but when its power became a threat to democracy itself. Yet, the Panic of 1907 revealed a new vulnerability. When banks froze, it wasn't the government that intervened, it was J.P. Morgan, who personally orchestrated a bailout from his private library. The episode was so alarming, it directly led to the creation of the Federal Reserve in 1913. An attempt to ensure no single individual could ever again hold the nation's financial fate in their hands. Progress extended to the workplace. Child labor laws started to take root. The idea of an 8-hour workday gained traction. With the 16th Amendment, a federal income tax was established, a direct challenge to the concentrated wealth of the elite. For a time, it worked. America had not ended capitalism. It had civilized it. But what happens when a society forgets its own hard-learned lessons? The guardrails didn't break. They were deliberately dismantled. As the 20th century wore on, the memory of crisis faded. A new ideology emerged, one that painted regulation as an enemy, antitrust as obsolete, and unions as a barrier to progress. Finance was unleashed. Mergers multiplied. Taxes on the ultra-wealthy were slashed. The influence of money in politics exploded. It was a slow, deliberate unraveling, and the data today tells a chillingly familiar story. The top 1% now controls a share of wealth not seen since the eve of the Great Depression. A handful of billionaires can see their fortunes swell by $1 trillion in a single year. We are rebuilding the architecture of inequality. The parallels don't end with wealth. While child labor isn't in coal mines, protections are being rolled back in some states, pushing teens into longer, less secure hours. Wages for most have flatlined for decades, while costs for essentials like housing and healthcare have skyrocketed. The gig economy has created a new class of precarious workers without safety nets, and corporate power has evolved. The Standard Oil of yesterday is the big tech platform of today. The trusts have become global, data-driven behemoths that shape not just markets, but reality itself. The political system, once again, seems outmatched. So we find ourselves in a second gilded age, draped in modern technology, but haunted by ancient problems. It's easy to look at this cycle and feel a sense of hopelessness. But the real lesson from history is not one of doom, it's one of agency. The first progressive era didn't happen by chance. It was forced into existence by public outrage, by journalistic courage, by political will forged in crisis. The tools are still there. Antitrust law remains on the books. Labor protections can be renewed. Financial regulations can be restored. History demonstrates that no economic rule is permanent. They are all human inventions, and what humans build, they can rebuild. The last time America faced such profound imbalance, it didn't crumble. The answers are in the past. We just have to look.